I think the main fact in U.S. democracy right now is not really polarization, though we have our culture wars. It's really the capture of the instruments of power by particular corporate lobbies. Almost all of our societies parceled out now. The financial world parceled out to Wall Street, the health sector parceled out to the big health industries, the foreign policy to a shocking extent parceled out to the military industrial complex, the energy sector parceled out to big oil and gas, though it's obviously under stress because of climate realities. And while we battle left and right, red and blue, the reality is actually the government is mainly run and operated by powerful interests. In the US, the elections that we just had in the United States were funded probably $8 or $9 billion in this off-cycle election. The next presidential election in 2024 will be a $15 to $20 billion affair. Now, this is big corporate money going into politics. It manipulates politics. It basically controls the politicians of both parties. The chairman of our House and Senate committees reap huge flows of funds from the industries that they purportedly oversee. And it reaches a point of absurdity. Recently, of course, we had the cryptocurrency collapse, and this Sam Bankman-Fried, who brought down his cryptocurrency trading unit. He was being advertised just the days before on a panel with our Secretary of Treasury, Zelensky, and Zuckerberg. The four were part of a New York Times panel coming up before the guy went bankrupt and is now enmeshed in mass fraud. And this guy, this kid, 30 years old, was the second largest donor to the Democratic Party in this cycle, basically with stolen and fraudulent money. And somehow Ukraine is in the mix of this and so forth. But my point is, basically big money took over our politics, and it has wrecked our politics, and it's wrecked the politics of both parties. Now, then comes the role of digital in all of this. And I'd say the media more generally. I'm not saying anything new or surprising to say we live in a sea of lies right now. But I think the main point I would emphasize, at least in the US context, is most of the lies are coming from government or government and industry alliances. So it's not so much the spontaneous lying and waves of fake information that come from social media, it's actually public lying. Much of what we're told about this war in Ukraine is lies. This has been a manipulation from basically from the start. My view is the United States helped to provoke this war very much by its push for NATO enlargement to Ukraine and to Georgia. We're not allowed to say that on the mass media anymore because the mass media is engaged in official narratives. My guess, the U.S. blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, or the U.S. and U.K. blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. The president said we were going to end it. He actually said it, but if you try to say this in the media, you can't say it. I know I was cut off when I have tried to say these things. I am of the view that even COVID-19, the virus, came in some way from U.S.-China lab research, and I've been part of a detailed effort to document this as much as possible, but it's against the official false narratives. Of course, the social media add to this, but I'm not sure the fake news is really it. Whenever there's a new medium of communication, those who hack that medium do use it for their purposes. This was true of radio with the demagogues of the 1920s. It was true of television after World War II, and it's true of the social media now. but it's a feature of the media more than of digital per se. But because we're in a digital media era, it's definitely amplified right now. I think what digital does, though, is enable deep fakes more than before. We're losing touch with what's real and what's not real. In a way, we're being thrown back into Plato's cave, I would say, because we see shadows, or we see deep AI that makes us believe certain things. But a tremendous amount of the manipulation comes from the state, I'm sorry to say. Not surprisingly, that's where the power and the money is, and that's where the corporate media partner, and there's clearly a lot of that going on, like the New York Times featuring the Sam Bankman-Frieds of the world, and together with Zelensky, together with the finance minister of our country, Secretary of Treasury, together with Mark Zuckerberg. My word. So this is, I think, the situation that we're in. We have a hacked political system. We have lost public control. One of the things that I've been doing for the past 20 years is tracking the difference of public opinion and legislative outcomes. That's part of the hacking. You know, the American public, little weird, but not so weird as you would think. And on most issues, 70% normal, I would say. And we have pretty significant majorities for fighting climate change, for example, for getting money out of big politics, for taxing the rich more, for staying out of wars. But that's not what we do in our politics. That's what I mean by the hacking of our democracy. It's not that the public's crazy. It's that the political system is controlled and manipulated. Just a couple of hours ago, I was part of the Valdai discussion group in Moscow. It was an online meeting, great discussion with Russian colleagues. We're in a cancel Russia mode right now in Europe and the United States, which is tragic, absurd, just stupid and dangerous. But I had a wonderful discussion with Russian colleagues on a number of issues, including the G20 summit that just took place, which on the whole, just to summarize, showed that the world could actually still get together and do something useful. And maybe it argues against what I'm saying. It was the face-to-face meeting of leaders that probably chilled them out a little bit. You know, if I could stick with government just for a moment, the reason Americans don't trust our government is that it's not trustworthy. And I'm now 68, so I've lived a long time through a lot of administrations. And basically, the US government has been lying to me my whole lifetime, and lies of a major sort. You know, I was young when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. They lied about that. The Warren Commission was a lie. Then we had Richard Nixon, and he lied about everything. But he lied about Watergate. We had the Vietnam War, which was a lie, and the Pentagon Papers revealed that lie. And it's been on and on. We had the Iraq War completely on phony circumstances. And now I saw, as I was chairing the Lancet COVID-19 Commission, how the US government is lying about the virus. We don't know where the virus came from, but they're certainly not telling the truth about what they know. That is for sure. From the very beginning, they aim to tell us a narrative rather than to tell us the truth. The truth may be they don't know, but they claim to know that it's from nature and it's not from these research activities and so on. And I think we don't know, but they clearly haven't told us the truth. So the breakdown of trust is real because the government's not trustworthy. Why? Well, because we're an imperial power. It happens in the United States, and empires don't tell the truth very much, because if they told the truth, they'd stop being empires, for one thing. And they have taken, I think it's unfair to invoke Machiavelli here, but I will do so anyway. They take the idea that the goal is power, and you do what you can to hold on. So I have a very simple prescription, very naive, but very simple. Tell the truth and trust will come back. And we're feeling a lot of distrust because things are not the truth. Look, 2 days ago, a missile a missile landed in Poland and killed a couple of people. At the beginning, Zelensky said, Russian missile attack, and there was suddenly calls for NATO engagement in Article 5 and so forth. Then, actually, the U.S., to not have World War III, said the truth that, this looks like it was a Ukrainian missile, not a Russian missile that landed. And the Ukrainian foreign minister said, that's a conspiracy theory. This was a Russian missile. Somebody's lying here. It's not a game what we're in. We're in a life and death situation. And we're playing with facts right now. We're playing with narratives, I should say more literally. And this is why the trust is absolutely so low. And maybe it is right that the social media have one influence on this, which is many politicians have said to me that they live in a nonstop 24/7 continuous news feed, that they don't even have a daily news cycle anymore. It's a minute-to-minute news cycle. And so everything is reactive, everything is manipulative, everything is to keep the narrative, everything is to stop for a moment and a breath. I don't know whether that's it, but if we want to have trust, we have to be trustworthy. That's the main point. Trustworthy means telling the truth, in my view.